So in Avatar, I played Dr. Grace Augustine, who's a scientist who's come from Earth to study life on Pandora, particularly plant life. And she falls in love with the Na'vi people and with the planet, and gets involved in this whole invasion that this corporation has launched in the planet, and she ends up really getting very committed to the people there and trying to protect them. Um, in Avatar: Way of Water, this transformation that Grace started has continued, and although we don't have Grace with us in the same way, there's a young girl who's about 14 who has something to do with Grace, who, like Grace, is in love with plants and very curious about everything, and often much more comfortable with wildlife and plant life than she is with other Na'vi. Carrie's a great character. I can't imagine having a more challenging role than Dr. Grace Augustine, but Carrie certainly is, because she's such a free spirit at the same time as being a kind of very self-conscious adolescent. So you have all these different currents at play between being kind of very outward and also very inward, which I think is what I remember about being 14, is that sometimes you're so free and other times you're so wrapped up and closed. And so it was a real joy to play these scenes. Jim Cameron has his own family, and I think a lot of our scenes with siblings and friends and stuff are very much inspired by his experience being a father of his own family. Well, my strongest memory of making Avatar was two. First of all, I'd never experienced this technology before. So just watching the playback of using this kind of very powerful 3D in a scene with Jake Sully or something like that, you seem to be in the world with Jake. And it made his decisions that he was going to make much more important to you, because you were very much in the same world with him. It's a different theater going experience. And then, of course, when I first saw my avatar as Dr. Grace Augustine, my blue self, who is 7 feet tall, I was so amazed that there was a technology where I can be walking through the volume, as we call it, in a capture suit, and it would translate somehow to a screen over on the right where I would be this other species. And everything I was doing could translate right away. I could see a roughed out version of the Pandoran world. I'm just thinking, it's not that I'm unintelligent. I think I understand scientific basics, but trying to figure out how Jim had conceived of this technology, that it actually worked and worked beyond one's wildest dreams, I still can't get over, honestly, how he did it. Well, being an Avatar was an amazing experience. We got to go to New Zealand to shoot, where I'd never been, and work with people in New Zealand in their studio there. It was really exciting. I love that often when you are an actor, you get to go to different parts of the world and work with the people who live there, and it's always such a privilege. I think I felt the story of the first Avatar was so extraordinary, and the character I got to play, who's sort of in this uneasy situation between her avatar, which she prefers to be in that body, because she's in nature and she's part of this community that she loves, and Grace, the doctor, who's constantly at odds with the corporate employers that she works for, who's a chain smoker and a heavy drinker. She much prefers being in her avatar body. But anyway, it was sort of the whole world that Jim created in even the human section of Avatar was so fascinating. And the science fiction aspects of going into a link machine and then having your consciousness change. The whole thing is still so mind-blowing to me. And I'm looking forward to the fact that it'll introduce a whole new generation to these wild concepts. Jim Cameron is such an amazing storyteller. And he came up with this story about these blue people in another galaxy, a planet far, far away that was filled with nature, new creatures, new challenges. It was such an escape from our planet, beautiful as it is. It was in many ways a kind of story about what happens if a planet is not protected. So it still had a lot of meaning for us as Earthlings, but I think this experience of being taken away to a different world and involved with a story that has nothing to do with you, is such a great, such a great freedom for people, leaving your own life behind and going into this other complete 3D world was so good for us, I think. Such an adventure and like nothing we'd ever experienced in the theater. That's, as a theater goer, I can't wait to go back into the theater and see it again, all remastered by Jim in this fantastic version. Well, I imagine that most kids who didn't see Avatar have heard about it. And even if you've seen some of it on your TV, during COVID or something, really nothing will prepare you for going into a real theater and experiencing this world in 3D. It so takes you out of yourself and your world. It so takes you to a different place, and to be with all these creatures and new community and their problems. I mean, I think he's such a great storyteller. The story is so compelling, but also technically, it's just the most transformative movie experience I have ever had.